and let them walk you through your Medicare Advantage plan options. There are so many benefits you have access to, so make the call now and let the representatives explain everything to you. Our licensed insurance agents can offer you a variety of Medicare Advantage plans. Plus, the call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation to enroll. We're here to make it easy for you to select a Medicare Advantage plan that may work for your needs. Finding a Medicare Advantage plan can be easy if you do what I did. Make a quick call right now to learn more. Thank you. Call 800-749-7781. That's 800-749-7781. Call now.
Llama a tu amigo Trip Amigo. Una llamada a Trip Amigo te consigue el billete más barato a cualquier destino. Solo dinos a dónde quieres ir y Trip Amigo busca entre cientos de miles de ofertas disponibles en billetes aéreos y hospedaje también. Nuestros clientes ahorran hasta el 75% en las tarifas aéreas y reservaciones de hoteles. Llama ahora mismo. Tu amigo Trip Amigo te consigue los mejores precios de billetes aéreos y hotel.
Welcome to another episode of Balancing Acts, the show that is dedicated to helping you balance all the things you have to do to grow a successful, profitable business. We've had lots of shows on mindset, on marketing, on PR, on sales. Today, we're going to talk about really tax planning, maximizing deductions, getting ready for year end, the things you have to do because tax is really critically important to your success and to your cash flow. I'm your host, Linda Hamilton, a CPA, certified exit planning and business coach. And with me is Rolanda Watson, who is the owner of Rolanda's Tax and Professional Services with over 26 years of expertise in tax and accounting. Known affectionately as My Tax Lady, she aids both for-profit and not-for-profit organizations in achieving financial health and tax compliance. Her passion is transforming client visions into business success by creating customized tax strategies. As an enrolled agent, Rolanda excels in tax advisory preparation and representation. She's ready to solve tax problems with grace and patience and collaborates with a team of bookkeepers, payroll providers, and tax experts. And she's an Amazon best-selling author. Welcome. We have something in common. My clients call me the tax whisperer.
Oh, cool.
So let's start with the importance of tax planning for small businesses, which, they don't always have time to plan, or maybe they think, what does planning mean? Coming in, April or March to get their tax return done. So what are some common tax planning mistakes you see small business owners make?
Common tax planning mistakes. One is not planning. I think as a business owner, it's important that you have a vision set for your business. Now, as business owners, we look at what we love to do, whether it's construction, whether it's real estate, whatever your business is, you look into what you love to do. But a part of that is making sure that we're spending our money wisely. And one of the best ways to do that is to prepare and plan. I like to tell my business owners that if you're starting a business, we can start around this time, the fourth quarter of the previous year. Do a projected budget and let's look at what we're going to plan for the year. That gets them to thinking, do I need more equipment? Do I need to hire another person? And that's essentially the basics or the beginning of tax planning. Now, of course, we can go spread further with that with tax planning and set up some things throughout the year. Do we want to minimize your taxes? Do we want to put you on compensation? Is it ready to change your structure? So those are some of the things you want to look at when you're looking at tax planning for your business. What your industry is like, what are the norms for the spending in your industry, and how can we get the most out of your business for you, the individual?
That makes total sense. And I think What I hear you saying also is they don't always know the questions to ask. And by coming to a tax advisor, that will help them understand what are the right questions, because
Right.
it's not exactly the same for every business owner. They're in different industries. They may have different revenue structures. Do they have employees or not? So that's really good advice. How can they find someone, a tax advisor to work with if they don't have one? And is
Great
there a
question.
difference between compliance only and a tax advisor?
That's a great question. I would say you want to look for, first of all, someone that you're comfortable with,
Mhm.
someone who is aware of your industry and that you can build a relationship with, because I like to think that this is a relationship business. Compliance is simply that it is reporting to the Internal Revenue Service what has been done through the year. It is not advising you and helping you build a plan to make sure that your business is successful. One of the things I like to tell my business owners is that you want to have a team of people who knows their industry and can help you build in your industry. That's your lawyer, your tax advisor, your insurance agent, and another consultant to make sure that you're compliant with the law, with taxes,
Yeah.
and with your insurance, and then make sure you can build. The advisor asks you those probing questions that you say, I didn't think about that. And that's what we do as tax advisors or tax planners. We forecast for the future and push our business owners to think about, what do you do in this situation? How do you handle this situation so that we can help them prepare 3, 5 years out?
That's great advice. Great advice. Would you say that what are the most important tax deductions that small businesses often overlook?
I would say, first of all, the importance of assets. Having assets, building their assets. They don't think about what a new they maybe a new equipment. If you're manufacturing, it may be time to purchase new equipment. But
Mm.
because depreciation, which is one of the things that we use in our industry to help minimize your tax, but then advance you, we need to take depreciation from your assets. And you may not be thinking about, hey, I can purchase this new equipment and begin to get a tax deduction for it, because you don't want to pay for that new equipment before the end of the year is. So I think assets are something that our business owners should look for in advancing their business while minimizing their tax. I think we overlook the value of our expenses, our office expenses, because we use them so normally. We overlook them. Some of our marketing, we don't take advantage of what we could do and maximize with our marketing, because these are just things we overlook. If you are in the construction industry, of course, you think about your tools, but you don't think about the pens and the papers and those things. So I think those things are important. Of course, again, I think it's industry based, but as a whole, we overlook our office expenses, our marketing, and our assets, and what we could use our assets to help minimize our tax liability.
And that, as you said, like when you're thinking about year-end manufacturing, those are often very expensive assets. And being able to maybe get deductions possibly before they have to lay out the cash can be helpful in planning before year end, right? Maybe
Right.
because there are, how do you take depreciation deductions at the end of the year if you financed the items?
So I would, considering depending on what the asset was,
Mm.
and that's where for me what tax planning is, I would encourage them to, if they're going to sometimes you can purchase the asset and then pay over time. And that will be where I would encourage them to do, with taking that as a depreciable asset.
And the key is to come to you before they make the purchase.
Please,
So, because you can't
please,
undo the past, right? That's why
please.
you mentioned tax planning for the
Right.
future. That's
And that's
great.
the whole idea
Yeah,
of tax
yeah.
planning and advising. I encourage you to have a continual relationship with your tax professional, so that we can make sure the decisions that you make align with bringing down your tax liability.
Great, great, great advice. So the tax laws are going to change again, right? There's a number of provisions expiring at the end of 2025.
Right.
How can small business owners in particular stay proactive with preparing for these changes or any change? Constant, since I've been in business, which is 35 years, it's constantly changing. You've been in business 26. How many changes have we seen? So how can small business owners keep up and with those changing laws and stay in compliance?
I like to say the business owner should have a relationship with their professional. As in the name of our program here, Balancing Act, it's important for that business owner to know what their specialty and their passion is, while they trust their professional to know what their passion is, and they're constantly communicating with them. Let us do the research and let us keep up with the IRS changes while you do what your specialty is.
And that makes total sense. We're going to take a commercial break in a moment. I hope what people take away from this episode is how important it is to plan in advance. And in order to plan, you must meet with your tax professional. If your professional is not willing to meet with you or has no time for you, that might not be the best fit, because being able to ask questions in advance and so you can be prepared is the best way to balance and juggle all the financial activities that you have to do. We're going to take a commercial break and we'll come back and talk to Rolanda in a minute about more on tax deductions.
How would you like to go on a 5-star vacation for just $99? We're talking about the quality of a Westgate resort for $99. Not for one night, but for 3 fantastic nights at one of their luxurious destinations across the United States. And you'll even get a free $100 Visa gift card just for making a reservation. We've got some of the choicest destinations that you'll love in the United States that you can choose from for just $99 for a 3-night stay. Take your family, take a special loved one, but get away. Go on vacation with Westgate Resorts. Call now to make a reservation for just $99, and you get a free $100 Visa gift card. Call Westgate right now and book your vacation. Here's the number.
Call 877-930-3491. That's 877-930-3491. Again, 877-930-3491.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here and there's my oxygen.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Call us right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 800-367-1753. That's 800-367-1753.
¿Tiene un carro, camioneta o SUV viejo en su casa? Aunque no funcione y piense que es chatarra, usted puede llamar al número en pantalla y donarlo a Susan G. Komen para ayudar a salvar una vida. Nuestro personal calificado va hasta su domicilio a recogerlo de forma totalmente gratis. La donación de su automóvil, camioneta o SUV viejo ayuda a apoyar a las personas afectadas por el cáncer de mama, así como también al trabajo vital de Komen en investigación, atención al paciente y educación. Necesitamos su ayuda. Tal vez considere que su auto viejo es chatarra o que no vale nada, pero ese auto no deseado es importante para que Susan G. Komen continúe ayudando a las personas con cáncer de mama. Llame al número en pantalla hoy. Iremos a recoger su auto rápidamente. También recibirá una deducción de impuestos por su donación caritativa. Ayúdenos a ayudar. Llame ya.
Taking a trip in the next 12 months? Airlines are under tremendous pressure and they're practically giving away their unsold seats. Like every crisis, this one will end too. But right now is the best time to take advantage of giveaway ticket prices on their unsold seats. We're not allowed to publish these low fares online. The only way to get these rock bottom giveaway prices is to call. So phone low-cost airlines now for airline ticket prices you may never see again.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Linda Hamilton, and we're speaking with Rolanda Watson, an enrolled agent and the owner of Rolanda's Tax and Professional Services. And we're talking about all things taxes today to help you plan for a strong fourth quarter and get ready for next year. Let's talk about maximizing tax deductions for entrepreneurs. How can they keep better track of their expenses if they want to maximize deductions?
I would say the most important thing is your record keeping. When it comes to filing your taxes, documentation is key. So, of course, using a accounting record keeping system is best. But if you are a new business and you're kind of scattered with all of that, I would recommend starting with an Excel spreadsheet. The important things for the Internal Revenue Service is that your expenses are ordinary and necessary for your industry. I like to say that because sometimes people feel like they can just take the same gamut of expenses that everyone else takes, but that's not true. The tax deductions for a real estate professional would be different than the tax deductions for a trucker or a caterer, just because the industries are different. So have a record keeping system. You can use an accounting software. I don't want to preference one over the other, but an accounting software that's going to meet your needs at your level. There are accounting software for entry business owners. There are accounting software for business owners that are in the 6 or 7 figures that need certain reports. But that is key for keeping up with your expenses. There are expenses that you may have from day to day, and you're not paying attention to them because you're going along your day. But if you set a system that you have one way of getting those expenses in, maybe one particular bank account, or you're using one particular credit card, you won't miss your expenses. But it's all about setting up a system or process that's going to work for your business at the stage that you're in.
Yeah, so you want to capture these deductions so you don't lose track of them. Otherwise, you're spending money and not getting a benefit for that.
I like to say you're spending money and putting holes in your pocket because that money goes right back out.
That's true. That's very true. You mentioned ordinary and necessary, which is a phrase those of us in the tax business are very familiar with. And I think sometimes it's a little more difficult for taxpayers to understand. Can we go a little more or an example of something that's ordinary and necessary?
Sure. If you are a real estate agent, let's just say, it is ordinary for that real estate agent to have mileage because they're doing their driving. That is a part of their business. It is necessary for that real estate agent to have license, that they renew their license. That is a necessary part of your business. So what the Internal Revenue does is they say, you're in this particular industry. What is it that is ordinary for your industry to use in order to operate your business? And then what are some necessary things you need for your business so that if you can't have this license, you can't have a business. If you can't have a car, you can't have this business. It depends on what your business is. Again, that's why I say expenses are not a blanket picture. It really depends on what your industry is in. Then you turn around and say, okay, this is ordinary for me as a caterer. This is ordinary for me as a trucker. If you are a trucker and you don't have a truck, that is a necessary expense that you need. So look at your business like that. What is ordinary for me to run my business? What is necessary for me to run my business? Now, sometimes I've heard taxpayers, they just go to the other end with it and they say, it's necessary for me to get my hair done. No, that is common. That's etiquette for you to present yourself in a way that you need to get your hair done, or you need to present yourself in a plausible way. We want to look for things that are ordinary and necessary for you to execute your business in a professional manner, not things that are common for you to do as a human being and as a person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So in that case, it would not be necessary, or not be ordinary, maybe. It may be necessary, but not ordinary, since it has to be both. There might be some professions, like maybe a model, or I don't, that what's ordinary for a model or someone in the fashion industry, or maybe a public speaker, might be different than the others, but they still shouldn't take advantage of it, which I think is critically important.
I definitely, and that's what brings up red flags to the Internal Revenue Service. First of all, taxpayers would listen to anybody, tell them what they should or should not deduct, and then they may take it too far. There are certain percentages that we have to be aware of our deductions. So those are important as well.
So you mentioned red flags. Are there any, I know you do a lot of representation, which means you represent taxpayers when they have an audit before the Internal Revenue Service. What are some things you see that have caused red flags for the IRS to actually look at, or even to be not able to defend it when you get there?
I would say mileage is a big one.
Mileage?
Mileage is a big one.
Right.
And I would say that because, again, if you're not in an industry where that is a necessary part of your business and you've taken it as a write-off, or the income that your gross income that you've brought in, it just doesn't make sense. You don't have the mileage log or any type of app, any proof that you've done the mileage. Another one I would say is the meals.
Yeah.
Our meals that we state are business meals, we don't substantiate them with who did I eat with, what was the business discussion, do I have proof of the time and the date? Those type of things would cause red flags to the Internal Revenue Service. A few of them.
And and there's probably two sides to that. You might have justifiable mileage and business meals. Right. But if you don't document any of them, they didn't happen. So, like real estate is location, 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 and taxes document, like you said. So how do they track those things? Or should they meet with their accountant to make sure they really understand it? Because you could be talking a lot of money for those deductions.
Yes, I definitely think it is important to talk to your accountant about them, because first of all, in our society, we hear so much online. And we hear a little bit instead of the whole scope of what's necessary. So when it comes to mileage and taking those deductions, it's necessary to substantiate them, because you may have proof of mileage, but you may have oversubstantiated your numbers and you don't have the proof with your mileage log or your app that says that these were business miles versus personal miles and commuting miles. So you need those things, but you don't know them if you don't have a relationship with your professional that you can reach out to us and say, this is what I have, is this substantiated? And not April 15th. But this is a relationship that needs to happen from January to December to make sure that we're taking the necessary precautions and we're making the best decisions for your business.
Exactly. Let's talk a little bit about, does the type of entity you have, LLC, S Corp, C Corp, does that have any effect on the available deductions you might have?
Yes, it does. And it also has an effect on I would say, your size of business and what you want to deduct. If you are a single member LLC, the IRS treats that just as you are a sole proprietor. However, you have some legal benefits. So those are not tax benefits per se, but more of your legal benefits. When we start becoming an S corporation, one of the things that we have several advantages, but one of the things we want to be careful with that is that we take a reasonable compensation. Or you can either take reasonable compensation or no distributions and no compensation. I say that because a lot of times when you become an S Corp, you think, okay, well, I'll just take a distribution. And you do not look at what the IRS looks at for reasonable compensation. And that means we're looking at what is reasonable for your industry, for your particular title, and all the other hats that you wear. As an S Corp, sometimes you wear many hats. And we need to take an accountability for all of those hats when we're putting you on your W-2 or your reasonable compensation.
Right. And some of those hats get paid less than other hats. So that can be to your benefit as you're looking at. But you know, as you said, the key is not to take distributions before you paid yourself a reasonable compensation, because they can penalize you and reclassify things, and it just creates a mess. And reasonable isn't looking it up on the internet. It's meeting with your accountant and documenting again.
Yes. Again, we keep going back to that important relationship of meeting with the accountant and having an ongoing relationship, because in our world today, we can find almost anything online.
Right.
But does it provide all of the guidance we need to make a wise decision?
Exactly. So we're going to take a commercial break. I hope what you got out of this episode, if you're listening, is that documentation is key, especially when it comes to mileage, business entertainment. And there are some other things where the documentation is everything. And there is an app for that. So if you're not organized and you don't want to collect papers, use the app and take a picture. We'll be back in a moment and we'll continue our conversation with Rolanda.
How would you like to go on a 5-star vacation for just $99? We're talking about the quality of a Westgate resort for $99. Not for one night, but for 3 fantastic nights at one of their luxurious destinations across the United States. And you'll even get a free $100 Visa gift card just for making a reservation. We've got some of the choicest destinations that you'll love in the United States that you can choose from for just $99 for a 3-night stay. Take your family, take a special loved one, but get away. Go on vacation with Westgate Resorts. Call now to make a reservation for just $99, and you get a free $100 Visa gift card. Call Westgate right now and book your vacation. Here's the number.
Call 877-930-3491. That's 877-930-3491. Again, 877-930-3491.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives. If you're struggling with your own tax nightmare, we've got great news. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now, you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.
If you turned 65 recently like me, it's important you find a Medicare Advantage plan that gives you the coverage you're looking for. But finding one can be difficult. The best thing I did, and I suggest you do the same, is call a licensed insurance agent and let them walk you through your Medicare Advantage plan options. There are so many benefits you have access to, so make the call now and let the representatives explain everything to you. Our licensed insurance agents can offer you a variety of Medicare Advantage plans. Plus, the call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation to enroll. We're here to make it easy for you to select a Medicare Advantage plan that may work for your needs. Finding a Medicare Advantage plan can be easy if you do what I did. Make a quick call right now to learn more. Thank you. Call 800-749-7781. That's 800-749-7781. Call now.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
Welcome back to Balancing Acts. I'm your host, Linda Hamilton, a CPA, and I'm talking all things taxes with Rolanda Watson, an enrolled agent and tax representation expert. Rolanda, let's talk about that tax representation part. What happens when you get that dreaded notice, the IRS envelope, and you open it up, and some taxpayers probably don't even want to open it up. But what's the first step you want to do when you get that letter?
The first step is to open the letter. I would say that because I've talked to so many people and they've had the letter just sitting around and they're afraid to open the letter. The first step is to open the letter. Every letter that you get from the Internal Revenue Service is time sensitive. There's a certain date that those letters need to be responded by. Many times by the time you get the letter, because it's coming in the mail, that letter is, you've already lost maybe 7 to 14 days. So it's important that you open that letter and then you go ahead and move forward to speak with your representative. Myself, I'm an enrolled agent. Give us a call. We help you as soon as you get that letter to begin to work on your behalf with the IRS, and then many times explain the letter to you. The Internal Revenue Service has a way of talking that the average taxpayer is like, what does that mean? So in our office, once you get the letter to us, we explain the letter to you to make sure that you're fully understanding what's going on, what they need from you, and how to respond to them with that letter. But first, open the letter.
Yes, open the letter. And some letters can be very scary, but sometimes they're just something that is easily solved and it's not going to be painful at all. So don't avoid opening the letter and get to your tax representation, your accountant, your enrolled agent, your CPA right away, so that you know what the dates are and what they're asking for. So what do you do when a client first comes to you with an IRS letter? How do you approach that conversation and figuring out what has to be done and how quickly it has to be done?
First of all, I take the time to make sure that my taxpayer is calm. Like you said, just the letter, the notice, the envelope itself causes some anxiety. So I make sure that they're calm, and then I review the letter with them. I let them know where it's coming from, what is the issue with the letter. It may be a CP 2000, which simply means that they've missed something on their tax return. If it's something of that nature, I would explain whatever it is, let them know how they can resolve it, give them the option. Do you want to resolve this yourself? Do you want to have a representative to speak on your behalf? Because some letters, as you said, they could go back to their accountant or go back to whoever they prepared their taxes and get that resolved. They can respond themselves. If you respond yourself, I always encourage people to make sure you understand what's going on with this situation. Some things, if you try to go at it and do a DIY, you won't say what the IRS needs to be said. or provide them with the documentations that they need, which is why a resolution expert is so important, because we deal with this all the time. We understand the timelines, we understand what's needed, and we understand how the Internal Revenue Service operates. And that's key whenever you're dealing with resolution or representation. You must understand how the service communicates and operates.
So let's talk about when they don't come to you in time, or the letter is blown, or maybe they go to an accountant who's not used to doing representation and they're busy because it's tax season. The IRS does not care that it's tax season because the audit division has nothing to do with compliance. So what happens if you're too close, or what happens if you blow the letter?
Many times, if you blow the letter more than 2 or 3 times, because they'll send out a follow-up letter, and then they'll send out another letter. It would give the idea that you're ignoring them, and you don't want that to be the case. So you might get what's called a 90-day letter, where they're saying, oh, it's time for us to put a lien, or it's time for us to levy. They may garnish bank accounts. They may, if you owe them more than $10,000 or more than $50,000, they may put a hold on your passport. Those are things that you don't want. And they come as a result of procrastinating or ignoring the IRS. And to the individual taxpayer, that brings anxiety that's unnecessary. So that's why I encourage you, reach out to someone who is knowledgeable about that. Don't let those letters pass you. Each time you let a letter build up, that other letter is more, they're putting more pressure on you to respond, and then they will start taking things away from you. And you don't want that. You don't want a revenue officer assigned to you, because they'll get into places you don't want them to go. If it's an audit and you're ignoring the letter, they may want to ask one question, but by the time they get to you, they may open that audit up more and say, well, let's check on this mileage, or let's check on this, because we've ignored the situation. We don't want that to be the case.
So it's really important to not ignore them.
Very important.
It's not what they want. So you mentioned liens or levies. What if there's somebody in the audience who's maybe has some liens or levies? Is there anything they can do to alleviate the problem? Because that can put a real strain on your cash flow, on your business. What can be done about that?
You want to communicate with the Internal Revenue Service, have a professional like myself or yourself or CPA reach out to the Internal Revenue Service, and we can hold off those liens till we negotiate what it is that you need to comply with the IRS for. Compliance is key. It's so important that when we're filing our tax returns, that we take the time, be careful with those, that we're responding, not ignoring the letters, because they want compliance more than anything. They want to know that if you owe me, let's make arrangements to pay them. Now, in making arrangements, you could qualify for some programs that the Internal Revenue has. You could qualify for an offer in compromise, or maybe you're in a financial hardship. Believe it or not, there are programs through the service where they can help you with a financial hardship. But the key is, don't ignore the situation. Don't ignore the letters. Have your representative speak on your behalf to make sure that you can get in a place where there are no liens, no levy for you.
That is perfect advice. Don't ignore them. When we were talking earlier, you mentioned monitoring, which I hadn't heard before. What did you mean by monitoring when it comes to representation or audits?
Okay, so in our practice, we have a program where we call transcript monitoring. And what that is every month we monitor your account with the Internal Revenue Service. Earlier, I spoke of letters that may come out and you don't get those letters through the mail until like maybe 14 days later. Well, the IRS wants a response in 30 days. Through our monitoring program, we will essentially check your situation with the Internal Revenue Service every month. So we'll see when those letters are coming out before they actually come in the mail. We'll get a heads up, and we'll be able to begin communicating with the service on what they're looking for on your behalf.
That is a great service. People move, mail gets lost. I mean, let's face it, the post office absolutely loses things. The IRS loses things.
Right.
So having a monitoring service means you're going to get a hold of that missing communication because they're going to send it directly to you as a tax professional. That is a wonderful service. What would you say? We talked earlier about documenting expenses, but sometimes you cannot prevent an audit, right? There are random audits. They are just fishing expeditions. They are, just sending it out. How do you be prepared to actually successfully defend yourself on an audit so it doesn't cost you a lot?
So with my compliant clients, those that I'm doing their tax returns for, I like to file their returns as if we're being audited, which is why documentation is so important. So if you have all of your proof in one area, when you get that letter and the Internal Revenue Service says, hey, prove that you took this expense, then you simply want to provide them the proof that you already have with your tax documents for that expense.
That really makes sense to do that. And any last words you would say that you want to give taxpayers advice, whether they are being audited or they're just worried, maybe they're in the middle of an audit with somebody else and they're concerned with it?
I would like to say that your professional that you're working with is very key. Keeping up and documenting, having the professional that will communicate with you. Many times what we don't know, we don't know. And if your professional is communicating with you, that will ease some of your fears during that audit. You are communicating back with your professional. One thing that I've seen is the professional may be communicating with you, but the taxpayer is not responding. And that hurts your situation as well. We want to work as a team to make sure that you stay compliant, to make sure that your business is growing, and to make sure that the Internal Revenue Service knows that you are doing your part as a taxpayer to pay your fair share, not more, but your fair share of taxes. So those are some of the things I would encourage.
Great, thank you.
Don't ignore any letters.
Don't ignore any letters. So we're going to take a commercial break. I hope what people heard during this episode is, one, you don't want to ignore these notices. You might want to ask your professional to monitor your transfers, especially if you move a lot and you find that, I don't know, my mailbox is full of junk mail and very little important mail. But those are the things that are important, and that you want to make sure you're documenting your expenses and keeping up. I love what Rolanda said about preparing your return as if it's audited. I once took a class where the IRS commissioner spoke, and she said to tax professionals, don't play the audit lottery because it's not a good place to be. We're going to take a commercial break and we'll be back in a moment.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
Llama a tu amigo amigo Trip Amigo. Una llamada a Trip Amigo te consigue el billete más barato a cualquier destino. Solo dinos a dónde quieres ir y Trip Amigo busca entre cientos de miles de ofertas disponibles en billetes aéreos y hospedaje también. Nuestros clientes ahorran hasta el 75% en las tarifas aéreas y reservaciones de hoteles. Llama ahora mismo. Tu amigo Trip Amigo te consigue los mejores precios de billetes aéreos y hotel.
Taking a trip in the next 12 months? Airlines are under tremendous pressure and they're practically giving away their unsold seats. Like every crisis, this one will end too. But right now is the best time to take advantage of giveaway ticket prices on their unsold seats. We're not allowed to publish these low fares online. The only way to get these rock bottom giveaway prices is to call. So phone low-cost airlines now for airline ticket prices you may never see again.
Welcome back to Balancing Acts. I'm your host, Linda Hamilton. I'm a CPA and exit planning advisor, and we're talking with Rolanda Watson of Rolanda's Tax and Professional Services, and we're talking all things taxes, tax deductions, tax planning, and now we want to focus on getting ready for the fourth quarter, actually getting through the fourth quarter, ending the year up strong, and how to plan for the upcoming tax season in 2025, which is really just around the corner.
Right.
So what would you say, what steps should they start to prepare for in the fourth quarter?
I would say it's important to start with a budget. Let's look at, first of all, historically, what did you do last year? What were your ebbs and flows? What were your peak seasons? And then let's look forward to what you're anticipating for this year. I think that's important because it's an opportunity to talk out with your professional. If you're planning on buying another asset, when will you purchase that asset? Let's put it in the budget. Let's start planning for it. Is it realistic to purchase that asset a little sooner? Do we need those deductions for this upcoming tax year? So we're working in between the current year while making sure that we're planning for the year up ahead. It's important to look at where we are with our estimated taxes. Take an idea from your profit and loss statement to see where our profits are. Have you been paying in your estimated taxes? Have you paid in enough estimated taxes? Do we need to look at a SEP plan or your retirement plan? Now, that's a good and important one because as we're planning for the closeout of the year, I think it's important for business owners to remember that they need to save for their retirement as well. That's the thing that gets overlooked, paying yourself and then saving for your retirement. When you look at your retirement plan, it's important to bring your financial advisor in with your accountant to make sure that we're working as a team to make sure that you get the best retirement plan for you. And it works with your tax structure and strategy that you're working towards. So those are some of the key things that I think we should look for in this fourth quarter. Of course, there's several others depending on where you are in your business. But let's look at that budget. Let's get a good projection on that budget. Let's look at your assets. Let's look at your estimated taxes, and let's look at your retirement plans.
That's great advice. I'm going to unpack some of that so we can go a little deeper into that. But in order to look at your estimated taxes or know how much, your books really do have to be in order. So if they aren't, you don't know how much money you made. It's very important to know what your profit is. So I don't know how often people come into you where they don't know that yet, but yes. What should they do to get prepared to do a projection? How are they going to know how much they owe?
Right. Then we need to look at those books and clean those books up. So that means if you don't have bookkeeping in place, then we need to do the things necessary to get bookkeeping in place. Earlier, I talked about how documentation is important and how we lose thousands of dollars of expenses just because we're not keeping good records. So that is vitally important. This is a great time to do the cleanup for your books, and that'll allow you to see a world of things with your business when you're making the most money, when you're stretching yourself too thin, when you need to get more assets. So bookkeeping is essential to growing a successful business.
And so if you don't have a bookkeeper, you might ask your accountant if they can help you with that, or if they can refer a bookkeeper. There are a number of you can offshore it, you can onshore it. There's a lot of ways. Some people do part-time bookkeeping, but most important, it's really probably better to do it all year round rather than wait until the end of the year, because now you're scurrying to get things done. And tax professionals are also pretty busy in the fourth quarter planning. So it'll take that much more time to get ready. You also mentioned retirement planning, a SEP you mentioned. And I know that oftentimes people, when I speak about SEPs with my customers, they're not always aware that the flexibility of a SEP is that you can kind of create it late in the year, but you also have more time to put money in it, so it doesn't right away. Do you want to talk a little more about, what is it based on? How do you determine how much of a SEP you can do, and when do you have to do it?
Great question.
And what is it, the name of a SEP?
Simplified Employed Pension Plan. So this is actually a strategy that you can use for your business as a self-employed individual, where you can take your net profit. Now, what that is you have your gross income, and then after we deduct all of our expenses, we want to look at your net profit. That's the amount that you have after deducting your expenses. And we can take up to 25% of that and put that aside for your retirement in a plan that you would have for yourself. So once we put that amount of money to the side, let's just say it is March the 15th. And you want to do a set plan for the previous year, but you didn't put any money aside. There's a way that you can talk to your tax professional and extend your time of filing so that you can have time to save that money and employ that into your set plan for the previous year. Now, I would encourage you, as we've said all this time, to work throughout the year so that it's not so strenuous. If you have your bookkeeper is telling you what your net profit is every quarter. We put that money aside so that we can have that, and talk to your financial advisor so that we can have that in your SEP plan. That's an ideal way of doing it. But you definitely want to have a retirement plan for yourself as a business owner.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point about putting money aside, because what ends up happening is, yes, you can do this SEP, but let's say you have to put in thousands of dollars into your SEP. It's a nice tax deduction, but you just so happen to owe the government money as well. So now you have to come up with a lot of cash in April, and the SEP usually goes by the wayside because they can't do both. So definitely file an extension if you think you can come up with the funds because you have, if you're an S corp, until September 15th. But otherwise, putting it aside earlier can, it's like a savings account. Just save it until you and your tax professional decide when to pay it. What are some other key deadlines they need to keep in mind?
So of course, if you are on payroll, we haven't talked a lot about that, but if you're on payroll, you want to make sure you're keeping up with your payroll tax deadlines, which are quarterly. Estimated taxes, those are quarterly as well. April 15th. Throughout every quarter, you want to report that into the Internal Revenue Service. Filing deadlines. Typically, your filing deadlines for your S corp and your partnership is March the 15th, unless there is a natural disaster or something that we need to adjust for. And the same for April 15th for your C corp and your individual personal tax return. So those are some of the key deadlines that we want to watch out for. If you file an extension, that extension is going to run you 6 months for your initial filing date. So for March, that's September, and for April, the normal filing deadline is October 15th, which will be coming up very soon for us.
Is there any reason to fear doing an extension so that you can take advantage of extra time, maybe to get your documents together or to put money aside for retirement?
I like to encourage my clients that with an extension is an extension to file and not to pay.
Right.
So I think it's important that if you do decide to file an extension, that you kind of give an estimate or a roundabout of your taxes and you send something into the service if you know that you're going to have a balance over a certain amount. But if you've been paying your estimated taxes in and you've been watching your withholdings and doing the other things that we've discussed, then you should be fine. But extension is extension to file, not to pay. You still could be assessed penalty for filing before the service.
And, talking about estimates, I'm going to talk about an S corporation for a minute. A lot of times because you take a salary from an S corporation and you have some withholding, and then they still owe money. And the taxpayer says, what do you mean I owe money? I've been paying in taxes, withholding all year. So the problem is, I think that taxpayers aren't always understanding that it's not just the salary, but there's money left over and profit left over in the S corp that passes through, and somebody has to pay the tax on that. How could you help them really manage that? Because you don't want to overpay too much or underpay.
So there are definitely different strategies that you can use as an S corp. Not to go into debt, but we have like the Augusta rule. So different strategies that you can use to make sure that that taxpayer is getting the most out of the S corp structure. An accountable plan is something that we would use as well. So it's not just the W-2 salary, but it's taking a look at your retirement plans, Augusta rule, the accountable plan, to make sure we're again minimizing the taxes as much as possible. And that pass-through income that will come back through on the 1040, again, that would be as minimized as much as we can, which goes back to our year-round relationship with your tax professional and not a one and done.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rolanda, for sharing your expertise and insights with us today. I think it's very helpful for our audience. How can people find you? How can they find your firm, whether on social media or your website?
Thanks for asking. My website is mytaxlady.net. That's mytaxlady.net. You can definitely call our office at 832-431-4844. And I am on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram and LinkedIn. You can message me on any platform, and you can also schedule a free 15-minute discovery call so that we can just discuss any situation and see if we're a good fit to work together.
Thank you, everyone, for listening in to this episode of Balancing Acts today. I hope that what you took away from this, or even if you want to replay it, the important messages were to make sure you're documenting, particularly your mileage and your business meals, to make sure that you're taking advantage of tax deductions that are a best fit for you, or a retirement plan, and keeping your books in order so that you're better able to know how much money you need for taxes and how much money you can reinvest back into your business. Join us again next week for another episode of Balancing Acts. Thank you again.
Thank you.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Call us right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 800-367-1753. That's 800-367-1753.
What if you could make a free phone call and reduce your car payment by as much as $83 a month? Right now, you could be paying as high as 20% interest. Your new interest rate could be reduced to as low as 2.48%. You can refinance any existing car loan or leased car and save money every month. Take 5 minutes of your time right now. Make this free phone call and learn how to save hundreds of dollars a year by refinancing your existing car loan.
¿Tiene un carro, camioneta o SUV viejo en su casa? Aunque no funcione y piense que es chatarra, usted puede llamar al número en pantalla y donarlo a Susan G. Komen para ayudar a salvar una vida. Nuestro personal calificado va hasta su domicilio a recogerlo de forma totalmente gratis. La donación de su automóvil, camioneta o SUV viejo ayuda a apoyar a las personas afectadas por el cáncer de mama, así como también al trabajo vital de Komen en investigación, atención al paciente y educación. Necesitamos su ayuda. Tal vez considere que su auto viejo es chatarra o que no vale nada, pero ese auto no deseado es importante para que Susan G. Komen continúe ayudando a las personas con cáncer de mama. Llame al número en pantalla hoy. Iremos a recoger su auto rápidamente. También recibirá una deducción de impuestos por su donación caritativa. Ayúdenos a ayudar. Llame ya.